Is it panic time if Tennessee does not make the playoff in 2024?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Guys, you don't get to rebuild for 5 years. That's not a thing in college football anymore. It's Josh Heupel's 4th year. The playoff has expanded to 12 teams. It's panic time if he doesn't make the playoff. I would have questioned him if he wasn't going to make the 14 playoff. I think this is the year for Tennessee, and I don't think you get all these extra years to make it, okay? I'm sorry, I don't. Not this day and age of college football. If he can't make a 12-team playoff, yeah, it's panic time. And for the record, I'm going to bring this up about Josh Heupel's resume just a little bit. Guys, look, Josh Heupel, we are all impressed by the work he did to go 7-6 his first year at Tennessee, to make them a top 10 program in 2022, and then last year do what he did. In reality, he's riding the wave of one really, really impressive win, which was Alabama in 2022. I mean, let's be honest. As of right now, he's riding the wave of that win almost 2 years later. And if he doesn't make the playoff this year,
this is a team that beat Florida. You remember 2 years ago?
Oh, a 5-7 Florida team.
Okay, but that's Florida. I mean, that is
your best case was how they blew out LSU in 2022 when Tennessee beat the brakes off them. But I'm not going to get to that.
Those are two big wins. You can't discount. I know where you're going. You can't discount the LSU win just because it's in the morning. I mean, it's the factor, but you can't just throw it out the window.
Yes, I can.
Okay, then I can throw out the Georgia loss that when Tennessee lost to Georgia because Eric Ainge got everybody fired up in Athens. I mean,
I'm willing to throw that out. I'm not holding that against Heupel at all.
Okay, so, but you have to give him credit for beating Florida.
No, I don't. That Florida team was terrible. I don't have to give him credit for beating Florida. I can give him blame for losing to Florida last year because it raises red flags about his performance on the road. Now, I'm giving him a pass right now because of the whole Joe Milton situation and all the injuries last year. But I am saying there are red flags there, and he has to quell them this year because they become more red flags and more noticeable if Tennessee doesn't make the playoff this year. If they don't make the playoff, we're all going to start talking about Josh Heupel's issues on the road. We're all going to start talking about the fact that Alabama, that a great day in college football where Tennessee fans stormed the field and threw the goalpost in the river, was a springboard of a way for Josh Heupel to ride for a very long time. Okay, and you can't ride that wave forever. Philip Fulmer beat Florida in the swamp in 2001, arguably Steve Spurrier's most potent offensive team. But he lost to LSU a week later, and everybody turned against him that quickly.
I'm going to give you a scenario. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So this scenario, I think, will undermine basically everything you said. It's brought to you by Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online, qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Fooker said, "Hey, Bo," and Off the Hook Sports sent you. If Tennessee finishes 13, they could theoretically be a 10-win team, right or wrong?
Correct, they could.
Okay. If they win 10 games in the SEC and some college football playoff committee, of which has very little ties to the SEC, we were going over the names, I'd feel better about putting Caleb above 95% of the guys that are on there, guys and gals that are on there now. If they finish 13th because of a college football playoff political move, because the SEC has too many teams already in, and that's going to happen with the Big Ten or the SEC or both in a given year, that is not a reason for panic. That's a reason to get darn excited about winning it all in 2025. Caleb, finishing 13 and winning 10 games in the SEC is nothing to be disappointed about.
Well, okay, I need to change a little bit. I don't think they'd finish 13 with 10 wins. I don't. Now, let me be fair to you on something.
Okay.
They don't have to finish 13th to miss the playoff. They have to finish. They could theoretically miss the playoff at 10th because there's 5 automatic bids. So remember the committee's job, and they always say this in the NCAA tournament because you always hear, you've heard a coach say this, right? We are obviously one of the 65 best teams in college basketball. The committee's not picking the 65 best teams. They're picking the 34 best at-large teams because there's 31 automatic bids.
Talk about basketball.
Right. So in football, it's not about finishing 13th. There's 5 automatic bids. It's either winning the SEC or being one of the 7 best at-large teams. I think at 10-2, Josh Heupel in Tennessee, there's no way they don't get in. They're not putting an undefeated group of 5 team in over Josh Heupel at Tennessee at 10-2. Now, one group of 5 team has to get in. That's the rule. The best one will. But I see on the message board someone says a 13-0 Liberty team playing 0 Power 4 teams. I guarantee you, I'm going to say this to you up front right now, Liberty is not going to the college football playoff. I don't care if they go 13-0, win every game by 85 points. I think the committee would take another power group of 5 team over Liberty.
I tend to agree with that. But getting back to Tennessee, if they finished, so by those parameters, if they finished 10 and finished 13th, or they won 10 and finished 13th, you would take them as, you would say you would or would not say that's a disappointment. And then I want to get into why you don't think that they would be 13th with 10 wins.
I don't think they would. Here's why I would say. On here. And by the way, let's be clear. They be 10th. Maybe they probably wouldn't be 13th, but they'd be 10th, but they'd still miss the playoff at 10th. Because remember, it's the 7 best at-large teams, not just the random 12 best teams, period. So here is why it's still a concern. If they miss the playoffs at 10-2, Dave, what that really means is they went 10-2 and the schedule turned out to be way easier than we thought. Either Oklahoma was really, really bad, NC State was really, really bad, something like that, and they have no quality wins on their schedule. And this is the point I'm making. Alabama's the last quality win that Josh Heupel's had. Don't give me Clemson in the Orange Bowl. I'm willing to give you, okay, I'll concede LSU. They got back-to-back weeks they beat LSU and Alabama. So you know what? I'll rephrase. Heupel is riding a wave of a 2-week period where he beat LSU and Alabama in back-to-back weeks. Very impressive. And he really hasn't done anything impressive since, quite honestly. What did he do last year that was impressive? What was his impressive win? And I will say, I'm not giving you the Orange Bowl. I'll concede LSU, fine. I'm throwing the Orange Bowl out the window. Is that fair? The Clemson game?
I'm not going to go down this road for long because I get ripped on the message board, but managing Joe Milton's limited skills. I mean,
who did he beat last year while managing Joe Milton's limited skills? Who of any quality did he beat?
That's very fair, but that's a team with his limited skills and the injuries that Tennessee suffered that could have gone belly up. I give Josh Heupel credit for last year, whereas you think it was a down year. I think he overcame very, very significant injuries, some that we're not aware of that were nicks and bruises that affect the receiver group in particular throughout the year. And I think he overcame a quarterback that wasn't a great fit for his system. So if you want to talk about coaching last year, I'm giving Josh Heupel a B+, given what he had coming into the program. Now, as a guy that runs the program, maybe he should have put in Nico. Maybe he shouldn't have had Joe Milton in that place. That's a different argument. But as far as the X's and O's coaching last year, given the injuries in Milton, I'm sorry. I think that Tennessee did about as good as they could do.
I think fine. And I'm not actually saying that Heupel hasn't. Let me be very clear on this. And I guess I should be fair. There are some red flags that have shown, but I'm not trying to say Heupel should be on any hot seat or is in any trouble or has not done a great job through 3 years at Tennessee. I'm the one who said he should have been coach of the year in 2021. Okay, going 7-6 with that team, that's coach of the year. What I am saying, though, is now he has Tennessee where it needs to be. Is it fair to say, Dave, that Tennessee is where it needs to be under Josh Heupel?
Yes.
If it's where they need to be.
Just one quote really quick I want to throw out there. Willie Martinez says at times I feel like I'm just there along for the ride because they're stepping in and they're they're offering suggestions and making corrections to younger players, his defensive backs are. So absolutely, yes, I think the ball has now gone over the snowball has now gone over the hill and it's going downhill.
Exactly. It's where it needs to be. If it's where it needs to be, they shouldn't be missing the playoff. Okay, I'm sorry. That's just how this works out.
But that's how sports work out.
That is how sports work out. But if you're where you need to be, once the year is there, you got to deliver. Look, 2016. I'm going to go back to 2016. Butch Jones had Tennessee on an upward trajectory every year. He went 5-7 his first year, but secured back-to-back top 5 classes. Then went 7-6. Tennessee won its first bowl game in 7 years in 2014. The next year they went 9-4, had their first top 25 finish in 9 years that year. And 2016 comes, they return everybody. They have the most returning production of anybody in college football. They were top 25 the year before at 9-4, and everybody thought this is the year Tennessee wins the East. And they start 5-0, and then they lose 3 straight, and Butch Jones melts down, calls Tennessee champions of life, and the program crumbles because they didn't deliver when it was time for them to deliver. The program had arrived in 2016, and it couldn't deliver on the fact that it had arrived. The program has arrived in 2024. I'm not asking Tennessee to go win a national title. I'm asking Tennessee to be in the mix yearly, and Tennessee is at the level where they are now in the mix yearly.
For the record, Oklahoma would have been the 12th team at 10-2 if you want to go by the college football rankings at the end of the regular season last year. LSU was 13 at 9-3, Arizona 9-3 at 14. Louisville was 10-3 from a Power 5, 4-3, whatever conference we're calling it. But we know that's not a very good conference. Iowa was 10-3. So it can't happen. But I think what happens more oftentimes than not, would this be Tennessee's plight, and would this be a disappointment? And I'm just throwing this out there. I don't think 2 losses would get you in the SEC championship game. But may I offer this? Because I think what happened to teams is they took that late hit. You don't want to take that late hit. It shouldn't matter. It should be body of work, but where people recency bias factors in. So my question is, if Tennessee loses 2 games to Alabama and Georgia and loses to Georgia again, and they're 10-3, do they make the college football playoff? And if not, is it a disappointment? You have the final word, sir. I would say no, and I would say no to both.
I would say yes, because if they can't beat Georgia or Alabama this year, given 3 opportunities, when will they ever do it? And that's where I met with it. Now, you are right, and I'm looking at it. And by the way, not just Oklahoma, Dave, if the playoff this year were like last year, and you look at the teams and the divisions they're in, Oklahoma wouldn't have just missed it. Ole Miss would have missed it at 10-2 because of the auto bid that had to go to Liberty, who was brought up. And so I totally understand that. But this is, again, if Tennessee misses out, that means they had no quality win. And if they lose to Alabama at home, and then they lose to Georgia, and then they lose to Georgia again, and they have no quality wins, because this would also mean that Oklahoma and NC State weren't good, and I thought they would be, or at least NC State I thought would be good. If they have no quality wins and lost those 3 games, then they're still a tier below Alabama and Georgia. And Dave, if Josh Heupel's program, because if you lose to them 3 times and don't win 1 time, not just 1 in those 3 games, you're a tier below. If you're still a tier below, they will perpetually, forever under Josh Heupel be a tier below. And you don't want to be a tier below.
Smoky Mountain Red brings up a good point. If Nico had played more last year and we had a little more success than this year, would feel like a letdown with no making the playoffs. That's a good point. So if Nico would have taken over when I thought he should, and he would have played as well as I think he would have, then we're having a conversation now where there's a major, major red flag if they don't make the playoffs. I think you still have to factor, even though you and I are 100% confident in Nico, I will say that I'm more like 99 because I've seen these guys burn me before. So we still have to see it on the field on a Saturday consistently, right? Against quality opponents. So there is a possibility he could bust. I don't think it's going to happen. There's that possibility.
I don't think it's a possibility. I saw the Iowa game. I think that's enough for me to have hype behind him. And I think having started the year before is one of the most overrated things in football. If you're in the system and you perform, here's the thing. If you're in it's about how well you know the system. starting at that point becomes how comfortable are you in an in-game situation? And that you don't develop that, Dave. Like, I'm sorry, you can call me crazy. I don't believe like in-game experience matters. I think that's one of the most overrated things in football. Am I crazy for that?
A little.
I think
yeah. Big game experience or game experience, period.
Game experience is so overrated.
Oh,
like
no,
you either have it or you don't.
Not at this. Not first time. Now I will argue that you can be experienced enough where it doesn't matter if you've done it 5 years or 10 years. But I think the first time you go into Neyland Stadium as the starter and your adrenaline is pumping sky high, I think that's a challenge in and of itself, even though it's Chattanooga. I think that's a challenge to manage that. Now, I think that Nico is uber intelligent and he's going to do all this fine, but I don't think you can just say it's definitely going to happen.
I think it's definitely going to happen. And I'm going to give some credit real quick. One of the greatest things ever done. Tennessee played Syracuse in 1998, bringing in a new quarterback. You know they want to play close to the vest, right? They're like, oh no, what do they do? On the very first offensive play of the game, they call a play action, roll Martin out, and have him chuck it downfield. Now, it was an incomplete pass, but they're making a very strong point. We are all in on T. Martin as our guy, and we're not going to hide the fact that he's our quarterback. No, we're building our team behind him to try to win us games.